Good evening, YouTube. This is Warbles on a lot here, and as you may have guessed by the setting, this is yet another what you may call malt liquor video. Okay. So, to establish the bona fides, that was the end of the first 750ml bottle of Cooper's Brewery Best Extra Stout. Malt liquor, as some people know, is what the Norte-Americanos call beer that has more than 5% alcohol content. So this is a malt liquor video because what I'm drinking here is 6.3%. And I would like to combine two different schools of YouTube. I'd like to combine the malt liquor video community with the TeamTazerBigfoot community. Now, TeamTazerBigfoot is led, shall we say, fronted, perhaps, definitely promoted by a character called Snowwalker 1, aka Snowwalker Prime. And he's a pretty funny ex-military Norte-Americano who, well, he's got a biology degree and he's pretty good in the bush, or in the forest, however you want to put it. And he has a scientific interest in the phenomenon of cryptobiology, cryptozoology, which means that if anybody comes up to him and says, I have seen a Bigfoot, I have seen a Yeti, I have seen an abominable snowman, I have seen a friggin' mermaid, he will pay attention to them and ask a lot of questions. But if he hears anything in their answer which strikes him as wrong, he will have fun talking about it, alright? Snowwalker, whether it's Snowwalker 1 or Snowwalker Prime, he's big on the sense of humour, you know, and he's nailed a few very interesting, pretentious people in the Norte-Americano Bigfoot community. Now, one of the possibilities that I've put to Snowwalker is that perhaps, Bigfoot, Sasquatch and Yeti are a little bit like the Australian Bunyip, alright? Now, in talking about a Bunyip, I'm talking about a traditional Australian Aboriginal mythological legendary figure, or perhaps I'm talking about the thing that lurks in the Australian wilderness. You make up your own mind on that one. My understanding of the traditional Aboriginal story on the Bunyip is that children are taught they are never to go to a waterhole on their own without an adult, because the Bunyip lives around the waterhole and the Bunyip is able to read minds. The Bunyip is able to feel the brain waves of a child on their own and determine the difference between a child in the company or the presence of an adult or a guardian. So if a child goes to a waterhole on their own, they are at risk from being preyed upon by the Bunyip, and they may never be found. If there's one adult with a bunch of children, the Bunyip can sense the presence of the adult and the Bunyip stays away. It's only groups of young children unaccompanied who are at risk from the bunyip at the waterhole. Okay. There are people who suggest that the entire bunyip mythology is a convenient method of preventing children from going near the waterhole. I can remember when I was in primary school, a man was working on a fence. His two toddlers wandered off. One of the toddlers fell into a dam. The other toddler attempted to help the first one, they think, because both toddlers were found drowned in the dam. Neither toddler knew how to swim because the man's wife was afraid of children drowning. Therefore, she had never allowed her children near water, thus and because they had not learned how to swim. So, water safety in children has been an issue on the Australian continent for a long time. And some people say, or like to say, that the bunyip is a mythological creature, right? Invented. But once upon a time in about 1986, I was visiting a friend who lived at that time in a place called Red Range. And Red Range is, it's about 25 k's to the east of Glen Innes. And this bloke had grown up near the Blue Mountains, in the Blue Mountains, at a place called Lithgow. And we were talking about a particular spot in the Blue Mountains near Lithgow called the Megalong Valley. And that was pretty interesting because I had grown up with a young, well, three brothers whose father used to manage a farm in the Megalong Valley until he purchased a block of land at the little coastal village that my father had a holiday house in. So the Megalong Valley was somewhere that I'd heard about, and when this bloke at Red Range started talking about the Megalong Valley and the yowies or bunyips that he'd heard stories of when he was a kid and the encounters that he'd had when he was a kid, it kind of rang a bell because, you know, I'd heard my other friend talking about things that had happened in the Megalong Valley when he was in primary school. And we were chewing the story over, and we came to the conclusion that one of the ways that it would be possible for a large carnivorous animal to stay out of sight and hidden, either on the continent of Australia or anywhere, is if it's telepathic. I mean, if there's a species which is capable of reading human minds, then every time the people go out with their guns and their dogs and all the rest of it on a hunt for the Sasquatch is going to be 30 miles away in some other direction because it can feel them coming, it can taste them with their minds, right? So we were talking about that, and I mentioned that it would be really, really nice to see such a creature as a confirmation. And, you know, we get around 11 o'clock, midnight or whatever. And I set off to go back to where I was living. So I had to go from Red Range to Glen Innes to Emmaville and then to a place called Swallowshoot Hollow, which is where I was renting a farmhouse in the middle of 1,500 acres. So I drive, I don't know, 15 miles, 20 miles from Red Range to Glen Innes. And as I'm coming out of Glen Innes on the northwest side, the road took a 25-degree turn, and as I came around the turn, in the left-hand edge of my headlights, I saw a critter, a creature, a something on the other side of the fence, so it was at least 25 metres away from the road. It looked to me to be the size of a footballer, facing me. It made eye contact. In the moment of eye contact, I had the impression of communication as if, yes, you are right. That was the kind of message I got. Yes, you are right. This particular critter then turned around and ran away. And when it ran away, it was not running or galloping in the way that a large cat does, like a cheetah or anything. It was more running in the way that a goanna does. It had this, left front foot, right back foot going forward at the same time, sinuous characteristic to the way it ran away. It was black. It was heavily muscled. I could see how if it was on all fours, it could have been mistaken for a black panther. Now, the area out at Emerville where I was renting the 1,500 acres in the farmhouse on 1,500 acres, the football team out there is called the Emerville Panthers. And the story is that back in the 1870s or 1880s, there was a travelling circus that lost a wagon over I think it was around Torrington, on the Torrington Road. A wagon went over a hill and two black panthers, a mating, breeding pair, got away. So, yeah, there's a lot of cultural, sociological evidence for the idea that there's something at least as big as a panther, carnivorous, big and black and furry, which lives out there. And the only time I've ever seen it was the one night when I was out at Red Range talking about telepathic bunyips. Now, let's see, 3.5 minutes. On the subject of telepathy, the early white accounts suggest that Australian Aborigines were able to see a column of smoke in the distance, light a fire, throw a green branch on, make a plume of white smoke, then sit down and look at the column of smoke on the horizon and come up with a big, long, detailed story. One-eyed Jimmy, who was a bitter, twisted half-caste who survived the massacre at Skeleton Creek and was given Aborigines a bad name, was challenged by Black Tommy, who was the last traditionally tribal educated Aborigine on the tablelands. They fought with tomahawks. Black Tommy won. They fought to the death. One-eyed Jimmy's dead. And the white fella who's with the Aborigine who tells this story after sitting down and looking at a pillar of smoke on the horizon, the white fella says, "Yeah, when did that happen?" And the Aborigine says, "Yesterday." And it's like, once they realised they were supposed to pay attention and concentrate on the message that was coming from the person making the column of smoke at the other end, that's all it took. When I started living in this hut, there were Antichinuses in the hut. Initially, when I'd use a catapult to fire rocks at the Antichinus, they'd sit up and look back at me as if, "Oh, you're an idiot. There's no possible way. You can't hit me." But then, after about a month or so, a rock hit an Antichinus in the head. It fractured its skull. It killed it, broke its neck. After that, none of the rest of the Antichinuses in the nest, in the hive mind, in the gestalt, in the zeitgeist of the Antichinuses who live within a kilometre or so of here, none of them would sit still in my presence. They saw me and they ran. It was as if they had been given a death glimpse, as if the one who'd had his skull fractured had transmitted everything he saw in the previous 5 seconds, and all the Antichinuses knew. That white fella who lives in the little green hut, he's bloody dangerous. Don't sit still in front of him. The kangaroos, they can understand. what you're thinking as well. And that is 15 minutes.